Hey guys, here's a quick look at the DYS 3-axis or the DYS Eagle Eye brushless gimbal for DSLRs. You can see they're available in two different configurations, handheld and for aerial, for mounting underneath a multi-rotor or even a helicopter. So you can see the box is nothing really fancy. My gimbal just came in, so I'm pretty excited to actually try it out. I was able to take a quick look at it, and just from my initial impressions, I'm really impressed with the construction wise of the gimbal itself. So you can see when you open up the box, it's a pretty nice compact box. So I mean, I thought the box would be a little bit bigger, but it's really compact. You can see we got the metal plate for the camera tray. We got some plastic clamps. There are plastic clamps. I was hoping there were going to be some metal, but plastic is a little bit lighter, and it probably works just the same as the aluminum or CNC clamps. Let's see another bag here. We got some, I believe this is a thumb screw or thumb nut for the camera trays to hold the camera on. We got some more wires and some more wires and some more brackets, which I'll see later as I get along the build. This is just showing you guys, pretty much giving you an idea of how the gimbal looks when you're getting your gimbal. We got the handles right here, already with the foam grips on here. These tubes appear to be about 1 millimeter thickness as comparing to some of the other gimbals that has a 1.5 millimeter thickness carbon fiber tubes. I don't really see a bad thing about it, just they're a little bit thin, but since they're round, they shouldn't flex or break or anything like that, so no biggie about that part. We got the other handle. So we got 3 handles, 2 for the side and 1 for the top vertical. You can see here is the packaging, so it's pretty much, it comes somewhat assembled. What I like to do all the time, most of the time, is just take everything apart, apply some thread locker into the screws, and just to make sure. We got the 3rd axis gimbal controller. This seems to be the higher voltage. You can see here that handles up to, I believe, 30-40 amps. Let's see, we got the main gimbal controller on this back compartment over here, and you can see it has a 3rd axis built in. So once I piggyback the 3rd axis on here, I can just put all 3 pan, tilt, and the yaw motor sticking straight up, and buzzer already in here, so that's pretty cool. Pretty cool package. And depending on where you get your gimbal from, you may get the same board, you may not, so you always want to look and do a little bit more research on this gimbal or any other gimbal that you're purchasing, just to make sure you're getting what you're thinking you're getting. Got some more tubes here. Got another tube down here. And then another tube up here, so a lot of tubes all over the place. We got a 90-degree CNC attachment or elbow that attaches the vertical and then the horizontal. So you guys will see later on the next video as I get this thing fully built. Let's see, right here appears to be the pan cage. So you can see we got the pan cage right here. You can see pretty cool shaft. It's a hollow shaft, so I can always fit a let's see, some of the sensor wires. If you have sensor wires, you can always feed the sensor wires through here, and that keeps the wires from coming around and getting caught on the edges or anything like that. So it's pretty cool. Should give you about 360 or probably 2 revolutions before the wire starts tangling up, which is still better than most gimbals, as the wire comes out and then it gets caught in the side. Overall, the carbon fiber construction wise looks very decent. It doesn't look like it's the fake carbon fiber with the fiberglass sandwich in the inside, so it looks like it's real carbon fiber. It's pretty smooth cut. Usually with most carbon fiber that you find from some of the cheaper gimbals, it's a very rough cut. You can see I'm able to rub my finger along the carbon fiber without getting any splinters. So it's DYS did a pretty good job at cutting and cleaning or prepping the carbon fiber after they were cutting all these plates out. You can see we have press nuts or captive nuts, depending on where you're from. They're known as press nuts. Pretty much we tie this down and the nut fits into the plate, so you don't need to have 2 tools. Just one 2.5 millimeter hex driver will be enough to tie it down, and you don't need to have pliers to hold down a regular nut like some of the other cheaper gimbals out there. Pretty beefy bearing right here. It's a flange bearing. In my first when I first got this gimbal, I was afraid that it wouldn't be durable enough, that the shaft would be too small, the bearings would be too small, and the plates would be too thin. These plates appear to be 3 millimeter thick, so it's durable enough. just from looking at it. So I'm really impressed with it so far. We have the DYS motors. These are the 200 turns, the 5208s. So it should work, I believe this right here should work on a 3S, no problem. Might try a 4S because 4S just gives a little bit more power and more room to tune the gimbal. You can see, we take out this part, we got some more. These are the carbon plates for the handles and other parts, which I'll take it out later. We got the, you know, the vertical side handle and also the plates for the two handles if you hold with both hands. Let's see here. Comes really well packed. I mean, this is not going to move anywhere during shipping. It's all well padded. Just too bad you can't use the same box after you've, you know, finished building your gimbal, unless you want to take everything back apart. Let's see here. Moving this out. Moving this. There we go. You can see this is actually very, very nice. Let me put this down and show you guys the other part. This right here appears to hold the pan motor, the pan axis to the vertical or horizontal carbon fiber tube. So this right here is plastic clamp with a CNC that locks on the pan motor. We got one set screw, two set screws, so it looks, you know, like it will hold on pretty well. I was hoping that this motor shaft right here, let me focus for you guys, that this motor shaft maybe would have had a hole through it, so when you tighten this down, the set screw actually goes through the hole. So if these screws ever come loose, like, because it mounts like this, if these screws ever come loose in the future and you have like a 5D on there, the last thing you want is for your gimbal to just fall off the shaft. So it doesn't appear to have any holes. It has a flat spot, but the top part is open, so pretty much I'm pretty sure no matter how you tighten this, if it gets loose, it's gonna fall off. So what I'm going to do is find a longer screw, right? Instead of using a set screw, I'm gonna probably use a smaller, I believe 2mm screw, and just put on a drill press, drill a hole through there, line this up, drill a hole through it, so that way if this ever comes loose, it's not gonna pop off, because you don't want your camera gear to fall off. So that's one of the things that I just noticed, so I want to point that out. And now back onto the main gimbal, which is what I've been dying to see, was this tray. So you can see it's actually pretty heavy. I thought it would be a little bit lighter, but I guess with all of this CNC right here for this tray, it's pretty heavy in my opinion. So if you want to mount it underneath a multi-rotor, make sure you have a heavy lifter just to make sure that you can lift, you know, all of this weight. I'm expecting this gimbal, once everything's put together, is going to weigh about 4 to 5 pounds, just because you have all this CNC. So make sure you have a heavy lifter. You know, once again, you can see the clamps on here comes pre-installed. If you guys are going to build this from the, you know, your own, I'll recommend you to remove these screws and apply some thread locker and tighten them back down. So once again, we got the motors over here. And I believe these are different turns. So these are 75 turns comparing to the 200 turn motor on the pan. So the 75 turn should be more of a 3S motor, and the 200 turn motor should be more of a 4S motor. So I'm not really sure why they use 75 and a 200 turn motor, and they recommend a 3S. That's what a lot of guys are recommending, is a 3S battery. But I'm going to go with a 4S LiPo, which is 14 or 16 volts fully charged, and tune from there. But back on the gimbal, you can see these are adjustable with some 3mm screws, or yeah, 3mm with a 2.5mm hex driver. What I'm going to do with this one is probably find some thumb screws and then take out these screws, put the thumb screws on there, so when I'm making adjustments to balance the horizontal and vertical tilt on here, I can just easily use my fingers right like so and just, you know, loosen it with some thumb screws instead of regular screws that hides inside. That's just me. We got a hollow shaft. That's pretty cool. You guys can see through it, and also a larger hollow shaft through here. So this is great for fitting a sensor or any other camera gear. So if you have like an HDMI, or I'm not sure if an HDMI will fit, but this hollow shaft is pretty large. It looks to be like 10 or 12mm hollow shaft. So if you have a small HDMI cable for certain cameras, I'm pretty sure you can feed it through here, and that way you have less wires hanging all over the place, as everything can come out this side and just looks very clean. CNC, it's heavy duty. I mean, all of this CNC is very thick, and CNC is just really strong. Moving on to the back, you can see we got the motors again, got connectors. So with this whole gimbal, there's no soldering involved. You just plug in all the connectors. What I'm going to end up doing is probably soldering on the wires, because I really don't want the wires to be able to pull out and you plug it in incorrectly, you know, just from transporting it and whatnot. I'll just end up soldering the connectors directly on here, and you can see how the wires come out the side. When you plug in the connector, you have this little stub sticking out. So what I'm going to do too is probably remove the 4 screws here, and then just rotate the motor, either have the connector coming down or the connector facing up, and then soldering on the wires so everything just kind of more hidden after the final assembly of this gimbal. I believe same thing for here. I'm not sure why DYS just, maybe it just, you know, most of the time when you buy gimbals they come pre-assembled, and the reason why they come pre-assembled is the factory has better QC when it's pre-assembled. There's no missing screws and they know all the parts fit. So don't expect to buy a gimbal like this, you know, tying down the screws and expect it to work. You're gonna have to build it correctly in order for the gimbal to perform, you know, great or work great. So yeah, that's pretty much a quick look at the DYS gimbal. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to leave it in the comment box below. And yeah, remember to stay tuned for the future videos, which I'll have this gimbal fully built and give you guys the actual testing review of what I think about this gimbal. And so far right now, believe this part is not tying down, so I was going to check the rigidity of this gimbal, and I'm not sure how rigid it's going to be, especially when you have, you know, thinner plates, because my famous hobby gimbal has 4mm thick carbon plates, and these are, I believe, either 2.5 or 3mm, so they're not as thick. And I'm just afraid that with the weight of a 5D and all that leverage that sticks out in front of the shaft right here, you can see the shaft here, since you have, you know, the weight of a 5D with, you know, some lens on there, it could weigh up to 4.5, 5 pounds. And when you have that 5 pounds, you know, in front of the shaft, you're just putting, so actually here is probably putting like 10, 20, 30 pounds on this actual shaft, and that can cause some bouncing with some of the other gimbals. So I'm pretty excited to try it out. Hopefully this gimbal is rigid enough, because it looks like a really solid gimbal. You know, I'm really digging it so far. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and click like if you like this video. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a nice day.